Prestissimo, no, me presto, oui. Yes, because this sonata is in cut time, so by 2 beats, 1, 2, 1, 2. But is it a presto? And what is a presto for Beethoven compared to the lively allegro? The staccato is the humor, the Haydnesque humor. And it's very important to take in account the presto, to take in account the cut time, and therefore to take in account the other elements of the development of this theme in the exposition. First, the decoy second theme, which is not in the relative minor, the second theme, but it sounds like it could be. Accompaniment. Separate the beat by a pizzicato of the fifth finger. And the harmonic finger-pedaled horns. And give this kind of counterpart to the melody. Of course, then you have the syncopation. We have to talk about the character of the staccati. The first sonata is staccato. This is staccato. Or in cut time. So he writes staccato even in the last sonata. A tragic staccato, more like portato. Wet staccato, heavy water staccato. Here the staccato is spirited, Haydnesque, Mozartesque. Operatic, buffa. Immediately followed by a second half of the theme in the descent of the soft, tender sixth chords and impossible to finger. Of course, they could be fingered also with alternation of the two hands' thumbs. Some people don't like the one part divided between two hands, so it could be also with the short fingers over the long. Or perhaps simply legato, with the right hand playing the same. With substitutions, the old-fashioned legato of the good old teachers, no pedal until the concert. Beethoven told Liszt, when Liszt as a child played in Vienna, and Liszt told it in turn 70 years later to students that Beethoven told him, play without anything you're told. Haydn never taught me anything. Now, did he really tell him that, or was it just a way for Liszt to say to his students, be your own? I don't know, but it could be, because Haydn was in the 1796 still freshly the teacher of Beethoven when he composed this sonata. Mozart died only 5 years ago, so to say then. And the quality of the humor that Haydn has injected in his music, the irony as well in the quartets and in the sonatas and all. Moments of tenderness. Big operatic laugh. Ha ha ha! The masks of the 18th century. Oh, be it as it is. I'm very driven by this sonata because so much of it is already in other pieces. For instance, when he plays a development of this sonata's first movement in question, he has crossing the left hand over the ostinato material of the right hand. He'll do that even more dramatically with triplets in the famous Tempest. In the development in F sharp minor. And here, and the fact is that Mozart's concerto in D minor, slow movement, is the only slow movement of romanza with a middle section that is fast, with crossing hands, and ostinato in the middle. And this genre was familiar to Beethoven, not only because of the fact, but certainly also because of the fact that he performed the D minor concerto in concert as a young pianist himself in Vienna. And the middle section is of Tempest. And so this kind of writing is obvious to him since the affiliations with Haydn and Mozart and early Beethoven. But the staccato here is not dramatic like in 111. It's something very zesty, very picky, cherry picking. And when he does the first sonata, he also starts with staccato. And here, but when he does the appassionata, he does also like the first sonata, F minor arpeggio, but this time mysterious legato. We're so far away, a little bit more from Haydn-esque days. And the same is in staccato in the first sonata and in D major in this. The second half of the staccati of the first sonata, the theme, we have the legato, which here is so he is alternating legato with staccato, staccato with legato in character, and in the development he will develop it, but first in the exposition we brought to think this is the second theme, characteristically contrasting with the aria with accompaniment compared to the rambunctious so to say, of the tutti. And then we have a second theme. Very elegant, and of course inspired by the monolithical theme of the opening, this germinal development of the melodic motif that goes through the whole sonata, which is something becomes his real second period. Transformatively becomes the second theme of the dominant rather than this decoying motif. That's also the irony in the style of Haydn, where he brings these ideas in the sonata form, which of course is his trademark. That with the flat 6 in major, but that's another story. And the first theme. Now if we think of the Appassionata, second theme in the relative major, same theme, just differently presented. And what is this theme but an arpeggio? That is, Beethoven takes something mundane and obvious and transform it into a meaningful leitmotivish element to develop, like he'll do later, just with repeated notes in the third drop. And here, well, over here, this germinal development of the same motif, transformational through the whole piece, with the decoy elements like this in the relative minor, the second theme in the dominant, and in between an explosion of energy going to this dominant in question. Sixth degree. Chromatic scale, the extra dramatization in order to make probably a buffa out of it. Because obviously this is not a dramatic movement, but this chromaticism is made only to appear even more zesty. I think it's to do with adding more epithets and more special words that justify the... Well, listen to it without it. Too high and too obvious, but here A major, and now the chromaticism with the ending with the slowed down triplet in order to give the impression that we are almost too early arrived, and the release of the trill. This adjective to the verb is really what the chromatic scale is to the regular scale. It's so obvious to me. If he had done all chromatic, well, of course it's too many beats, but that's exactly why he didn't do that. To the exposition. The opening of the theme 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 slurred 2 staccato 3, which is an upbeat in the opening, but we don't know that since we don't have anything before to know it. To give a little impulse to the downbeat, while we give the tension, a little bit of tension on the upbeat. So tenuto, staccato, ma non troppo. E mezzo staccato. So taking only that head of it. He fragments it and he unifies it by a held whole note, which is in fact the combination of the slurred quarter to the dotted half, da, 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 well, since it's 4, 1, 2, 3. But he reproduces it like Schumann will do later, so many times in a row that you lose the knowledge of where is the downbeat against which it is presented. So it becomes its own downbeat, so you float in some kind of expectation. It's exactly what he's doing here from this section. When he concludes the exposition. One can voice out these horn calls and play softer the exchange of voice of the head of the theme in an orchestration interpretation, or just more subtly. Bringing out the held note more like a horn call, which is almost obsessive. Ending with the descent in the octaves. And even the whole notes in the right hand, brassy. In rhythmic acceleration, dotted half after the whole note, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, then 2, 2, 1, 1. What is that but an amazing rhythmic stretto, energizing. Who needs accelerando after this? Keep the pulse, but play the syncopations. Operatically laughing. Zesty voicing the top. More humorous. Or the thumb if you want more dark. But basically I think it's the top. And in the left hand, sustain, bring out this staccato, pizzicato of the scale. Like a bottle filling up with bubbles till the top. Like the theme. The opening. Of course he doesn't indicate any staccato, any other stem, top or down, like he does in the staccato in the 30 seconds in the opening of 110. How can you play for 30 seconds of which first staccato, the whole thing with pedal, and on top of it unaccented. F, sorry. And here there is not even indication. But I suggest to play it. Second time it's easier because it's in the thumb. But the thumb just triggered by the knuckle, not by the arm. Reactive and very, 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 very funny. And the staccato, suction cup, pick the cherries, cat paw scratching. Contrasts of touches, of dynamics, of tempo, of possibly pedal, the more you interact with the very work itself. It's like saturating the colors, adding light, photoshopping the interpretation. That shouldn't be the case, and the problem is that in order to have these different elements, included the conclusive calm chorale, and then the arrival with a fake sad minor of D in order to be the third degree third modulation. Bifocal. All these different character elements. First theme, first decoy, syncopation bridge, chromatic scale, with a trill, creating the first rhythmic accelerando, second theme, that is rather the second theme, conclusion, so what unifies the different sections is the pulse. So unity of pulse, and he writes Presto. He doesn't write metronomic marking because he didn't bring Melzer's metronome for the sonatas, but he brought it home for the symphonies. So we only can assume that if the meter is in 2/2 and the rhythm is Presto indicated, the mood is rushed, as Presto is. Granted, not prestissimo. And granted, is it German Presto? Perhaps not as hot-blooded as the Italian Presto. Even if the indications in Italian come from the Italianate opera, and the opera was the genre of the excitement that has all the genres in one, included humor, dance, singing, playing, orchestra, theater, of course, in that best sense of the masks. So basically the theater was the grotesque, the exceptionally contrasting characters that are being made up to be exaggerated, bigger than nature, or, yeah. Not always, sometimes more subtle, but generally that's what it was. And it was very important on the piano to write the same operatic drive, I would say. So I think most likely the pragmatic answer is that there are tectonic plates of very close tempi which are adaptable a little bit to each section, but beyond a certain margin it will become inconsequent, because then the unity of the two theme sonata form will be no more there. It will be all fragmented. If you do it doesn't work. It should be absolute music before its character in music. Of course, there's no words, and there are no characters indicated like in opera characters. You can name them and know which is the grotesque, which is the sad, which is the tender. It's not commedia dell'arte, but of course it smells commedia dell'arte. But it's not a specific piece. Absolute form, absolute music, absolute sonata form is what prevails. It's first a form over the contents, and the contents is the character, and we can either over, under, or just characterize it. And the question then comes how you find the right taste of staccato that suggests hints, humor, but not heavy laughter. The break in sixths. And then the broken octaves. And then the poker face, decoying second theme. emotional belonging. And he chased him. Almost skidded off the ramp. The elegant second theme with the most likely lady. Gently playful. Cunning. Catch me if you can. Pianissimo, it's by Beethoven. Chorale. Conclusion. And after the repeat, this transition to development in D minor. That would have made sense. No, he bypasses the suggestion of playing this theme in minor, D minor, to go directly B flat major, flat 6. That is what Haydn always suggests to do in major principal sonata, in order to bring that sense of colorization, and not B minor, which should be the key. Minor, he goes in the flat 6, which is why he bridges from D major connection to D minor. He doesn't do an announced ta-ta-ta modulation, he just stays on this fermata, making you imagine it will be perhaps lower. He surprises you. Now he starts his modulations, B flat major, G minor, dropping a third, relative minor of B flat major, then he goes dropping a third, E flat major, as a Neapolitan 6 flat 2 to D minor, the diminished third, and now concluding the development with the harmonic dominant pedal, using the harmonic minor with the augmented seconds in order to return more majestic in major. Place where one should never, hopefully, I suggest make a ritenuto, because he does everything to make a rhythmic accelerando, but controlled by the pulse, not by the indication. 1 and 1 and 2 and 1 2 and 1 2 and. This syncopated stretto is giving it the same dramatic effect of forceful forward drive as at the end of the development exposition. Dee ta 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 ta. That is something to go from 4 beats to 3 beats to 2 beats to 1 beat, simply in the syncopation. Dee ta 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 ta. And here tam pa ta ta ta. Can one not be energized? Now the difficulty is to maintain it from over-energizing, because in the development he did that. In the exposition, he already showed us his capacity of surprising us in terms of the will to maintain us in expectation. What does he do in the recapitulation? He goes back to the what I call the decoy second theme in E minor, second degree. The syncopations bridge. The accumulation of scales included the half diatonic, half chromatic. No more triplet this time. This time it's his choice. But I think it's a second theme with a C sharp. Of course, deriving from the first theme. And then the lost in space syncopation with a theme in the left hand. Just the head. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then this kind of fragmentation of the theme by offbeatishness at the same time in a driven connection of the held sounds of the sort of inner horn compared to the exchange of voices. It's breathless. In fact, it doesn't allow you to breathe. You have to be constantly on your ejection seat to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And all that you need to control with your counting pulse as if you're your conductor for your orchestra. So I would say 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, Even if it's not separated from the touch to direct your unity of pulse. Okay, it's breathless to do as an example, but it's fun to show that innerly that has to be the pulse that is staccato and the playing that is full of the variety of touches and indications. I must say that the problem often with the teachers is that we confront not only ourselves to the score as such, but to the editions, and then to the plethora of editions, and to the musicologists who find ever more varieties of reasons to believe in the one or the other, of the different details that occur either by wish, either by perhaps serendipity, or perhaps just by mistake in the copying, or just simply because the engraving of the scores in the Beethoven's time wasn't that precise either. For sure. Where do you place the sforzando? In the middle of the staffs. But where I place the held notes? Under, middle, or above. So there is no edition that indicates the sforzando specifically of the held notes if they are above and under. And so one should assume that they are for the all parts. That's not wrong either, except that for me it defeats the purpose of the writing with the stems up and down. And I think that then I wishfully think that the sforzandi are placed in this situation where I highlight them by playing them. in a subjective opinion of my interpretation, which is not the score itself or the edition. It's just my wish to bring that out. To a certain extent, it's a license that I shouldn't take, especially as a teacher, because I don't want to taint the students' opinion about the piece before they form their own, after they have experienced many. Shortcutting them to mine doesn't mean that I'm bringing them to the right decision. It has to correspond to their character, to their voicing, to their symphonic hearing, to their extraction of the sound, to their voicing how and how much or not too much. There is such a thing as over-voicing, even if sometimes I don't like to believe it. But the fact is that every time a student plays, the teacher also discovers that isn't my only way that I have to constantly implement. Not at all. I might disagree because it's not my aesthetics, but all of a sudden I hear in a student's approach, which is perhaps intuitive or scholarly regarding the edition, for whichever reason, all of a sudden there is a new way you look in a new light to the same element and you go, I never thought of that this way. And I think one should believe that that is a way to really true, humble, honest exchange. Not acceptance of anything. Of course, hoping to transmit to the student my understanding of what stylistically it should be, how much is sforzando within piano, how much is sforzando within forte. Inevitably, it's not the same. But how do you implement the impulse? How do you play the staccato to implement something humorous or something dramatic? When is it becoming a tenuto? And when does it become really dramatic tenuto drop? Or legato? How do you implement the upbeat with the impulse? If there is no downbeat before, by still projecting the bite of the downbeat while still giving the zesty accent on upbeat. If not, it's so easy to have a hint exaggeration. The accent goes too much, the contrast drops too much, the fortissimo screams too much or bangs too much, the pedal overstays too much and slurs things that are not supposed to be slurred. It's really a question of balance within the form and trying to remain always at the search of the integrity. And this integrity is the hardest thing to do because it's the least paying for the effect on the audience, who would prefer something more flashy for the sake of it. And sometimes Beethoven does more than flashy, but always meaningfully, when he tries to derail our downbeat. As they call them. With those zesty accacciaturas by thirds. And this ending on the middle of the bar, and not downbeat as he could have. No, stays up. And it's lifted from the beginning of the coda. Because he doesn't indicate indications for staccati on it, but I feel them. So I have to incorporate them, suggest them, and to the student and to myself in the playing without to become a caricature. To become this irresistible drive of humor, goodwill, at the same time spirited being. Yes, the search for the integrity and the fullness of the character and the precision of the detail and the articulation and the tempo, which might not be unified but might be just adaptive enough to the different sections for them to have their character, while you englobe the whole thing in this general drive up. So easy to say, so difficult to do. Not to mention redo. And re-redo. And re-redo. Unlike painters who would not say or imagine that they have to repaint the paintings of their exhibition every morning they open this, the salon where they exhibit their paintings. Imagine if all of a sudden at night they erase and in the morning they have to repaint them. I think that's what we do. Ephemeral constructions, sand castles on the beach, and we always can regret, oh, yesterday I managed to have this development so well, and then today doesn't speak, play, the piano is too heavy, I don't feel well, I'm jet lagged, something happened. We always have, and we should, well, anyway, that's another question of all our excuses. But the fact is that we have to remain so humble and so organized in our technique to be reliable enough to be able to restart it all the time, relentlessly until we reach it. And hopefully, when we play it for performance without speech, we just let all the elements unfold, some in the muscular memory, some driven by our counting in our inner conductor, and all of that becoming way more than addition this or addition that, teacher this, teacher that, or interpretation of this or the other. Everybody has the right to disagree, and many do. Be, as my teacher used to say, unforgiving for yourself in your relentless research for the betterment of oneself through the work that one serves in integrity. But at the same time, be tolerant for the others who have a different point of view. It could be chamber musicians, students, teachers, colleagues, doesn't matter. It is, you should not hierarchize either. Just remain open, curious, and kind-hearted, while with yourself remain mostly unforgiving until you obtain what you wish from yourself, or you think you should for the piece that you serve. In a way, it's easier to go around the opposite and be tolerant with oneself, to find all one's excuses. Oh, I couldn't do it better, I didn't practice it enough, I didn't have time. It's always a good excuse to just accept that we don't do it yet as much well, as detailed as we would like to, because it seems to be too many things to manage at the same time and absorb, and whenever it's easier to criticize the others by saying, oh, such and such didn't play it well, I don't think they understand it, or it's not supposed to be that way. Well, I guess it makes you humble when you know how difficult it is to expect it from the others too. Thank you.